Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 234 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be talking about the new album from a British pop band that first broke out in 2013 with their self-titled debut and with singles such as the hit Chocolate. And then they followed that up with their second album in 2016, which did also have a couple of hits on it, as well as some widespread critical acclaim. And now they're here with their third studio album, and the band that I'm talking about is the 1975, which is kind of funny. How their name is the 1975, because most of their music sounds like it was something that could be made in 1985. But I'm here to review their most recent album, their third studio album, which was released on November 30th, 2018. And the album is called A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. As you can see, I have a vinyl copy of this, which I bought at Ka-Chunk, and of course I'm wearing that shirt today. Which, this did come for, a pretty... This was a little pricey, but, I knew it would be totally worth it, because this is actually my favorite 1975 album to date. I'll go into a little more detail about it later, but first, let me show you this. This album cover, yeah, it is kind of simple, but at the same time, it actually kind of works considering the overall vibes and themes of the album. This kind of looks like, a little bit like a kind of like broken internet screen or something like that. And then, basically just plain white, nothing special, but look at this gatefold. Really cool. There's the liner notes there. And this kind of this definitely looks very digital in its artwork. And then here's a little insert, and it has all the lyrics in it. Released on Interscope, as well as the band's own label, Dirty Hit Records. And it's a double LP, so here's side A, and then there's side B. And then here's the other vinyl sleeve. Side C and then side D. But yeah, and that's the vinyl packaging for A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, the new album by the 1975. Like, this album was a little bit of an unexpected surprise for me because, before this album, I've never really been a big 1975 fan. I always found a lot of their music to be disappointingly formulaic, as well as very kind of lacking in originality. They were just kind of playing and sort of mining the 80s and the 90s and a variety of other things for inspiration in their music. So initially I wasn't really looking forward to hearing this new album, but I did hear some people that actually seemed to be really enjoying this album, and it seemed to be the most highly reviewed 1975 album. So I decided to check it out, and I'm very surprised because this is, in my opinion, the best thing I've ever heard from them. I mean, on this album, surprisingly, they sound less formulaic and actually sound a little more like themselves. They're really coming into their own sound here on this album. Besides their usual sort of elements of alternative rock and pop rock and synth pop, they're also embracing elements of there's lo-fi, some jazz in there, a whole host of different like digital electronics and effects are appearing on this album, like auto-tune and vocal processing as well. But don't worry, this isn't an unlistenable Dirty Projectors kind of pastiche. And also, lyrically, this album, as you can see from the title, it is an album sort of about the pros and cons of the internet. It's kind of an album that sees stories of people finding, different dates on the internet and sort of, this album is very cautionary of that, and that it sort of tells you how internet dating may seem really cool, but in the end, it's ultimately probably going to ruin your life if you don't, if you don't be careful about it. Full about it. About it. The opening track here, I think, is a really gorgeous intro for the album, which features basically some pretty sparse piano and synthesizer, as well as singer Matthew Healy's voice, manipulated, processed to create this really cool kind of robotic choir out of his voice, which definitely is very ambitious. You could compare some of the electronic elements here to like the more digital, angular side of Radiohead. Think like Kid A, for example. And then after that, it transitions into the first actual song on here, Give Yourself a Try. A really great pop song here. Love the catchy, fuzzy guitar riff, as well as the lyrics, which are quite complicated, sort of talking about the struggles of growing up and sort of the anxieties that it may induce. Some of their music in the past feels really young, but this album definitely is a more mature and more fully realized 1975. Like this track sort of, mentions some pretty heartbreaking things, including getting STDs at 27, and realizing your vinyl and coffee collection is the sign of the times. And also tells a little bit about a girl who committed suicide, who had a box tattooed to her arm at 16. So it definitely seems pretty up-tempo, but there is some very kind of messed up stuff going on underneath. And it's sort of about how, you kind of have to put other people aside and sort of give your own self a try. The song Two-Time, Two-Time, Two-Time sees a little more of a synth pop sort of groove to it. Really beautiful auto-tune vocals, and sort of a song about, this guy who's fallen in love with this guy through the internet, and he's sort of trying to let her know that, the reason why he can't always like things she posts on Facebook and, and like text her all the time is because he's trying to give himself space, and in the end doesn't really care if this girl kind of takes it personally a little bit. And it's a really catchy song. Love all the layers of electronics and synthesizers they incorporate in here. Some of the other songs on here have a little more of a political angle on it. I'm thinking songs like the track Love It If We Made It, which definitely is pretty blunt, not a very subtle, thought-provoking kind of track, but there really is a lot of purpose to some of these phrases that Matthew Healy shouts into the microphone here on this track. this track making references to a bunch of different tumultuous things, including the Trump presidency, uh, the breakout of opioids, the death of Little Peep, the figurative death of Kanye West, a variety of different things. And he's sort of saying how modernity has pretty much failed us, and we'd love it if we made it out alive from all of this crap we're exposed to. And I really like the production on this song. Great drumming on the song, and the gospel choir sounds awesome. And Healy's vocal performance, of course, is great in my opinion. But then we also do have some stranger cuts on here, like the song "How to Draw," which features some kind of lo-fi, kind of xylophone sort of stylings to it, along with some really cool kind of outer space-like electronics, and it features a pretty simple line of "I've not learned how to draw. What if you die with all the camera?" It's sort of wondering, if you're willing to kind of jump inside the world of the internet, that you're gonna live there for the rest of your life. And then it transitions very nicely into the track Petrichor, which does feature this really cool kind of hypnotic, surprisingly hypnotic synth lead, which I do think is unlike anything I've ever heard from them before a kind of robotic vocal comes in. And I really like the difference in vocals here on this track, because it really does show that at the beginning it sounds kind of like a human talking to you, but at the end it's more just the internet, a robot sort of, talking to you, and sort of telling you, don't let the internet ruin your time, and try and do everything 14 times. Definitely hear a little more of the Kid A influence here on this track for sure, but definitely not in a way that's distracting. I still can detect this as the 1975. 35. Other cuts that I definitely want to highlight that I really enjoy on here are songs like "Sincerity is Scary." Really like the kind of theatrical jazz that they kind of incorporate into this track. Really nice trumpet playing on the song, as well as kind of skittering pianos all around it. Great gospel choir on here. Definitely one of the best tracks on here, production-wise. And the song is sort of about kind of, sort of how relationships, which there are some lyrics on here about like relationships falling apart, but then there are some pretty unique sort of lyrics on here about like trying to mask your pain in the most postmodern way, and lacking substance when you say something like, "Oh, what a shame." It's just a self-referential way that stops you having to be human. I'm assuming you'll balloon when you remove the dirty spoon and start consuming like a human. That's what I'm assuming. Definitely some very intelligent lyrics right there, and a fantastic hook. Then I'd have to say probably my favorite track on here would have to be the song "I Like America and America Likes Me," which, the band goes as far as to use sort of typical internet phrases in this song, like saying that, your skin is fire, and saying "no gun required." So it may sound like kind of a song that's trying to glorify the internet at first, but it's a pretty harrowing song about, about different things such as gun violence and how it affects a lot of people in a very negative way, including the parents of victims of school shootings, for example. So if you've gone through something like that, this song is probably gonna make you bawl your eyes out, because it is pretty heartbreaking. Of course, that thing aside, I also love the vocal processing is used very awesomely on this track. It's instead of trying to make it sound like very like obnoxious or inhuman, it actually makes his voice so much more powerful. So like when he is like kind of roaring in the chorus, I just absolutely love that. Love that. So, to some it may come off as a little much, but for me it definitely is a pretty key point for the album. And then following that is another really strange cut, but also, in my opinion, one of the most depressing, the track "The Man Who Married a Robot," which is this interlude featuring some kind of fractured pianos and slowly building kind of strings. Think like the song "Glass Eyes" off of Radiohead's last album, A Moon-Shaped Pool. Pool. And there's a British Siri voice sort of telling a story about a man who, of course, didn't have any friends, was pretty socially isolated, but the internet was pretty much his one source of entertainment, and also friendship, too, like being his best and only friend. Which definitely is pretty heartbreaking to think about, especially since, spoiler alert, the man dies at the end of the track, but yet you could still go on his Facebook. But then again, it also does sort of talk about some of the other, pretty controversial things that unfortunately could come up on the internet. For example, revealing secrets as well as dick pics, and it's definitely the kind of thing that is a lot to take in. I pretty much can't listen to the song without having tissues nearby, because, it's a pretty emotional experience. But then it transitions into the very gorgeous and cinematic love theme. Also, great ballads on this album, I must say. The track "Be My Mistake" is one of my favorites here. Is kind of a song about another girl that the narrator kind of met through the internet, whom he's sort of kind of unsure where his love interest falls, and he's sort of telling her that her hair reminds the smell of her hair reminds this other girl of reminds him of this other girl's feet. And sort of letting her know that he's about ready to kind of let her go and kind of make some space in his life. So he sort of lets her know, "I'm just going to let you be kind of a past mistake, and I wouldn't worry too much about you, as I actually know this other girl a little better." Better, and sort of telling her that that he shouldn't have called, because they don't really need to speak anyway, and it's put over some very gorgeous kind of lo-fi acoustic guitars, and it really does show Matty Healy really improving in his songwriting. And then we also have the more unsettling "Surrounded by Heads and Bodies," which is kind of a song about someone who's gotten so used to the internet, so used to digital things, that he's kind of, almost kind of scared to, be around more humans and stuff like that. So, definitely pretty heartbreaking as well, and put over some really nice kind of spacey instrumentation, which does include some brush drums and upright bass, as well as some kind of strange vocal edits as well. The song "Mine" is pretty much a bit of a love letter to the internet, and sort of a little bit of a kind of morbid finish for this album, because the chorus of the song is literally saying, there comes a time in life that when someone will find himself a wife, but I'm just fine because I know that you are mine, and sort of talking about how they were pretty much friends back in 2009 and stuff like that. And this is another song that I think embraces the jazz influence really beautifully. It definitely sounds like the kind of thing you'd hear in a jazz club, but kind of warped a little bit to make it sound a little more in the 1975 world. There are even the moments here where the band does kind of really embrace their influences pretty unapologetically, which yes, it is a little bit of an issue still, but not quite as much. Would have to be on the songs Inside Your Mind. I mean, tell me you don't hear a little bit of Journey's Don't Stop Believing in this song. I sure do. With the kind of jangly piano along with that sort of power pop riff as well on the guitar. So on the guitar, the song, so the closing track, I Always Want to Die, sometimes features this kind of jangly acoustic guitar riff and kind of soaring instrumentation that definitely reminds me a little bit of like some old school Oasis, but in a very good way, I must say, as the band definitely does, give it its own kind of emotional intensity, as this is a song kind of about, someone having suicidal thoughts and kind of not being able to speak, and whenever he tries to, it just comes out as a squeak. So it sort of shows a pretty, like, kind of, melancholy ending to the album. So I'm pretty sure that the closing string interlude at the end of the track is probably a little bit of a soundtrack for, for someone maybe jumping off a bridge, try not to get too emotional talking about that. The one moment where I do think the band sort of mining their influences is definitely a problem is on the song It's Not Living If It's Not With You. Pretty lackluster instrumental on this track, though I do really like its lyrics about someone who, though I do really like its lyrics, which, if you dig a little deeper, you'll see that this is a song about heroin and how it's helping this one person kind of cope with the problems of the world, whether it be, the doom and gloom we're exposed to on the news, or the kind of controversies and flaws of the internet. Yeah, and it also does have a catchy hook, too. But actually, my least favorite track on here would have to be the song Couldn't Be More in Love, which both lyrically and musically is by far the most one-dimensional song on this album. Except for maybe Matthew Healy's vocal performance and the really nice gospel choir that comes in on the chorus. I will say probably another shortcoming that this album has is that it's a little too long and stylish, so therefore stylistically I do think it is a little busy, and I think one improvement that I would like to see made on their next album is that genre-wise they be a little more consistent, have more just a couple of good ideas that they can put together this really solid record with. Though a lot of the time the quality that they sort of embrace with a lot of these sounds does work. But overall, definitely a very good album. I didn't expect that the 1975 were actually capable of somehow wowing me with a full album, but I think with this one, they really did that. And I think this is the kind of album that, even if you've never been a fan of their music in the past, I think you're still going to find at least something to admire about this album. So I'm going to give this album an 8 out of 10 for sure. Which I didn't think I would say initially, but you know, this is a pop album worth checking out for sure. So that's my review of the new 1975 album, A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. I'll see you for episode 235.